Well, it is a tense night in Ferguson, Missouri, where the grand jury in the Michael Brown case has decided not to indict a white police officer in the shooting of an unarmed black teen. The 18-year-old was shot August 9th. His death sparked weeks of violent riots and accusations of racism. The CBC's Keith Boag is in Ferguson tonight amid a growing crowd. Keith, tell us about that first. How is the crowd reacting to what has happened tonight?
Well, right now, Peter, it's still calm, and they have been since hearing the news. For a long time, they stood there in almost silence as they listened to, in whatever way they could, as they listened to Prosecutor McCullough outline what the grand jury had done, the evidence that they had heard, and what they had decided. It was a long and drawn-out affair. In fact, when Prosecutor McCullough actually got to the key moment of saying what the decision was, it seemed to almost go past unnoticed for a few seconds because it was so low-key. Let's listen to how he actually said it. You'll get a sense of what I mean.
After their exhaustive review of the evidence, the grand jury deliberated over 2 days, making their final decision. They determined that no probable cause exists to file any charge against Officer Wilson and returned a no true bill on each of the 5 indictments.
And so the crowd heard that, but it didn't quite register for 10 or 15 seconds, and then suddenly somebody yelled out, "Oh no!" And there was a bit of a disturbance, but then people calmed down again to listen to what he had to say. Just heard what sounds like a shot going off there. People are now running. This is actually the 4th shot that we have heard, or the 5th shot that we have heard tonight. But let me get back to the story, because there were some important things that people wanted to hear even after they knew what the decision was. They listened as Prosecutor McCullough outlined what people had believed happened and then what the grand jury had decided really happened. And here's a little excerpt of the story that he told to reporters about what really happened on August 9th between Darren Wilson and Michael Brown.
An altercation took place at the car with Officer Wilson seated inside the vehicle and Mr. Brown standing at the driver's window. During the altercation, 2 shots were fired by Officer Wilson while still inside the vehicle. Mr. Brown ran east on Canfield and Officer Wilson gave chase. Near the corner of Canfield and Copper Creek, Mr. Brown stopped and turned back towards Officer Wilson. Officer Wilson also stopped. As Michael Brown moved toward Officer Wilson, several more shots were fired by the officer, and Michael Brown was fatally wounded.
And so that's what the grand jury believed happened. That's why they made their decision. It's hard to say what the crowd reaction is to that. Whether they're digesting it now. It is not a crowd that looked like the crowds that I experienced when I was here in August. There are people here with families who immediately after learning of the decision took them home to make sure that they were safe. I've seen one example of people smashing a window and running in and looting a store. I mentioned earlier the shots we heard down the road, and I can see from my vantage point here that police are there. The crowd is moving towards them, but there doesn't. It sounds like something else was being fired there. That may have been tear gas, but any altercation is taking place away from where we are in front of the police station. And I note that the helicopter above us, which has a searchlight on it, is not hovering in the air with the searchlight fixed on a particular spot, which indicates from what it can see up there that it's still scanning the crowd and looking for signs of danger. But overall, this is a much calmer situation than many of the other nights that I spent here in Ferguson in August, Peter.
All right, Keith, thank you. And we will keep in touch with you over the next hour and the hours following as things develop, perhaps in Ferguson, Missouri, and in the area right outside the courthouse as well. But the majority of the crowds, as Keith is watching, are right in that area outside the police station, and some difficulties clearly in some areas there. There have been some tussles, and we've seen other pictures of tussles back and forth. But at the moment, as Keith points out, not the same kind of violent situations that he has witnessed in past nights in the Missouri area as a result of this story. But once again, it is early in the evening there, shortly after 9 o'clock in Missouri.